Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and I have found a website that offers a free quilting design a month. Now, it's only for that month, so you have to print it out right away because the following month she puts a new one out. Her name is Edith, and her patterns are great. And there is one on there that is free and is always going to be up. And I'm going to show you how exciting it is and what I've turned her quilt pattern into. When you go to print out the pattern, it comes in pieces and you need to put it together. It has some placement lines, so you're going to be able to print out all of the pieces and put them together. Once they're together, well, you're going to be able to use it as a template. Now, what I've done with this is I'm going to turn it into a table topper. I just want a small table topper just so that I could put a little vase or something right in the center because I do like this pattern. So what I've done is I've drawn a pattern around the design. Now, it could be a circle, you could do it as a square, you could do any shape that you want. So after I've printed out the pattern and I've glued it together, I've made sure I've had enough paper around and I have drawn a mark all the way around. And once this is all ready to go, we're going to be able to transfer this right on top of our fabric. I like to use a light color so that I'm able to see through it. Now, if you're not able to see through the pattern, you can either use a light box or the good old-fashioned way where you're going to put this on the window and then you're going to be able to put the fabric on it and you'll be able to see it through the light of the window. When you put the pattern on, you're going to need to transfer the marks from the paper onto the fabric. Now, whatever you decide to mark it with, be sure that you're going to be able to wash it out because you don't want the marks in there when the project is done. What's really great about this pattern is you don't have to do the whole design. You can stop in any round that you want. So if you want to only do 3 rounds, you can stop there. Or you can do all of it and leave out maybe the little dots or leave out the little teardrops if you want. Or you just do the whole thing. When you quilt it, you're going to start in the center and you're going to do each round as you go. When you finish that round, you're going to go up into the next round. Now, she also has a video where you can see her actually quilting this, which is really, really helpful. Now, it might be easier if you mark each round in a different color. So you could do that first floral in a red, the second little leaves in maybe a black, and then you could do the next row in that red again. And if you do each row in a different color, when you get to the machine, you're going to be able to know when you need to go to the next row. So I've taken my white fabric and I've placed it on top of a pattern that I want to use. And the part here, this is the right side because I want to actually draw on the right side. This is the wrong side. So I've traced the pattern and I've done the first pattern in red. The second pattern I've done in blue. The third is in red, and I've continued all the way along. So when I get this to the machine, it's a little bit easier for me to see where I need to begin and where I need to end. So I've marked the entire pattern on the right side of the fabric. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the back of the fabric. This line that I drew all the way around the outside, regardless if it's going to be a circle or a square or whatever pattern you want, is going to be a stitching line. I want to transfer that stitching line onto the back of the fabric. So I'm going to take my fabric and turn it upside down. And I can see that drawing line right through the fabric. Again, if you can't right on the surface, hold it up to the window. So I've lined up the pattern right with the pattern on the inside. So it's actually matching up. Now I can take and trace that outside piece that I drew. My stitching line has now been put on the back. And it is a lot easier to mark the fabric like this and use a light box or a window than it is to put the whole quilt together and then transfer this onto the back. And this light colored fabric is going to be the fabric for the back of that little table topper. So I will be actually quilting this upside down. When I have the pattern transferred to the front of the fabric and the stitching line transferred to the back, I'm able to put the paper pattern away. Now I need to take the front of the fabric and place it on top of the other fabric. So the right sides are going together. So I have the right side of the light colored, the right side of the secondary fabric, and the batting along the back. And my stitching line I can see on the back of this fabric. Lining up the fabric so that I make sure that I have backing and batting all the way around, I will now be able to pin this. I'm not going to cut out the design first. I'm going to stitch it first. So I want to pin all of these 3 layers together. Make sure that all of your fabric is pressed even before you've drawn this design out, because you do not want to put the iron on any of the pencil marks or any of the marking pencils that you used, because the heat of the iron can actually set that ink, and we want that ink to disappear when it washes or when we rub it out. So I've pinned all of my layers together. Now I'm going to be able to follow that stitching line all the way around, but I'm going to leave just a couple of inches in one of the corners, because I'm going to need to turn this right side out. All 3 layers have been stitched together, except for this little spot here where I'm going to be able to leave an opening to turn it right side out. It's a lot easier to stitch curves when you have some fabric to hang on to. Now you'll be able to cut a 1/4 inch all the way around the outside of that stitching line. So you're not cutting inside, you're cutting outside. And when it's been all cut out, I like to go back into the back and trim off any of that little extra batting. So I'll try to trim as close as I can all the way around that stitching line. That just makes it nice and flat when you go to turn it. And turn this right side out and do it between the 2 layers of fabric, not the batting and the fabric. You need to go between the 2 layers of fabric. And when you've turned it right side out, a couple of things have happened. Number 1, you will not need to bind it. The second thing is the quilt design is already drawn onto the table topper. So you won't need to transfer any of the markings. You'll need to hand stitch that little opening closed. When the hand stitching has been done, you can finger press this. Now, if you need to iron it, just don't iron the pattern that you drew, because you don't want that ink to heat set. So you can just iron carefully all the way along the outside and then stitch a 1/4 inch all the way. So that little row of stitching has been done. The next thing we need to do is baste this together. Now you can use pins or you can hand baste it. And you're not going to need a lot of basting because it's very small. When your basting has been done, we need to set up the machine for free motion quilting. Now remember, the wrong side is the side that you are going to be quilting on. So your bobbin is going to be the color of the front. Now if you use the same color, you won't have a problem. And because there are no seams in this quilt top, I'm going to be able to use the Schmetz 7511 needle. And I'm going to use Aurifil thread 2000. And this color is going to be perfect for the front and the back. So I have my Bernina set up for free motion quilting, and I am going to use the stitch regulator. Instead of wearing gloves, I'm going to use a product called Quilt Halo. And what it is a ring, and it has this surface on it that grips the fabric. And I'm going to be able to move the fabric by holding onto the ring. So I'm going to start with my first circle, and it's going to have all of these little leaves. And I know this is my first circle because it's all done in red. I'm going to start in the center, and I'm going to go out and trace over top of all of those petals. just follow the pattern. And when I've finished all the red markings, which are the first petals, I'm able to go and follow the blue. And because I want to work in the middle of the halo, I'm able to move this and keep each of these petals right in the middle. And I can take the fabric and twist it so it faces me. Then continue. And when I'm finished the second round, I'm going to be able to go and follow this third round. And the third round I have in the red. When that round's done, I'm just going to be able to keep building the rounds all the way out. And when you're finished the last round, you're done. Now, if you feel there is more space here than what you would like, you can add a row all the way around the outside. And when you turn the table topper over, you have the beautiful design without all the marks in it. And when all the marks are removed, you have a beautiful quilted surface. And when you turn it over, it's equally as nice. Now you have a reversible table topper. So we go from this to this, where we've only just added a stitching line. We marked the right side of the fabric, but it was the back fabric. Sandwiched those fabrics together, stitched, turned them right side out, and then we were able to quilt from the wrong side because it was already pre-marked. And we have ourselves a really quick and easy table topper. Now you can turn these into placemats or leave them as a table topper. It's quick and easy. I'll put a link in the description so that you can get the free quilting design and you can follow along and get her free quilting designs every month. And as always, thank you for joining me. It's so very easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.